Hey everyone. So today I want to try something a little different. I want to present to you all a concept for a new rule modification to start changing the design of Star Trek Attack Wing. Um, I've been playing around with different design concepts for a while now, and while most of my focus has been on card design, um, I think the overall game has a lot of open design space that we can start to experiment with. So I've got several different ideas. I'm going to start with this one and see the kind of response I get. Because the idea of this is to get feedback from the community about this design idea, this direction I'm leaning towards, and see if I can improve the design. So, to that end, we're going to kick things off with revised shield mechanics. So, the idea for this is to provide directional shielding. Now, we hear all the time in Star Trek, you'll hear shields down to 50% or something like that. But just as often, we hear direct hit to port shields or aft shields down to 20%, right? So clearly, the direction that attacks are coming from matters in the world of Star Trek. Um, so to that end, I think that mechanic could add some tactical complexity to the game and make things just a little bit more robust when it comes to decision making about your ship's survivability. So the rules that I'm playing around with is ships will now have a starting and maximum shield value for each side of the ship's base. So the fore, the aft, port, and starboard directional shields. Um, your ship's total shield value would be the sum of all of those directions, right? So shield values are going to get significantly higher than they are in the base game. But each direction could have its own maximum. So, for example, I'm toying around with the idea of Klingons having just natively weaker shields from the aft because they shouldn't be running away from battle, right? So the Klingons want to be turning around and facing their foes. I think that gives some thematic play space to that, and it gives you a tactical choice, right? Like, okay, I know that I can get behind a Klingon and they're going to have weaker shields. That Klingon doesn't want you to get there. So that's what I'm playing around with, right? So ships that have more than zero shields, so any non zero number of shields, would then gain access to the power transfer action. When you do a power transfer action, you can either reallocate your remaining shield power. So let's say you've taken some hits, you now have 6 remaining shields, but all of your aft shields are gone. You could use power transfer to move shields from the fore of your ship to the aft, or from the port of the ship to the aft, or something like that, right? The other option that you can use power transfer is to permanently decrease your primary weapon value and add that number to your shield value. So you could say, I'm going to permanently reduce my primary weapon attacks from 4 to 3 and add 1 shield to one of the directions of my shields. I'm still not sure how the power balance feels with that. I feel like attack value is innately more valuable than shields. But there are times when you really want to have a shield. Do you need to cloak your cloaking ship? Do you need that survivability to just make it out of this tight spot? If you are flying things like torpedoes, suddenly this gives a lot more value to those secondary weapons. So that's one of the mechanical options to that. Now, during combat, ships are going to damage the shields based on how they target their attack. So we already measure attacks closest point to closest point within the arc. If you are measuring to your closest point, and that closest point is on the starboard side of the ship, then that's where your attack is going to hit for the shields. If you have a equal distance between two sides for the attack. Let's say you get the angle just right, and so neither player can really identify which side is closer. The defender is going to determine which side takes that damage, just to balance things out a little bit better. And then the last note on here I have is when shields are dropped, so for the effect of like cloaking, or if you raise your shields, all sides of the vessel drop shields together, right? You can't just drop your starboard shields and cloak. You drop all of your shields at once and raise all of your shields at once. And their current values don't change when you do that. So you can't reallocate shield power as part of dropping shields. Okay, so to this end, I've made a couple very rough drafts of tools that would help with this. So the first thing I have here is a new dial. The idea would be that you have, your ship emblem on this top piece here, and then you have the actual dial itself, right, that shows the value for those 4 directional shields. And you can hold a value between 0 and 9 in each direction. So that creates kind of a soft cap for total shield value at 36. But I feel like that's going to be a very large and powerful ship to have that many shields on it. I don't think anything would necessarily have that many. And this is tracking the current shield value, right? So the other piece of this is going to be a modified ship card that would actually identify on here the starting values for shields in any given direction. Now, I'm still toying around with, is a direction's maximum number of shields equal to its starting value, or should I maybe play with that a little bit? So, for example, I talked about Klingons earlier. Maybe their aft shield has a starting value of 2, and their maximum value is also 2. But the forward shields have a starting value of 4, and their maximum value is 6. So if you wanted to go for broke, you could put those 2 aft shields on your forward side and charge in, guns blazing, right? Very Klingon of them. So this is just a concept that I'm playing around with. Thank you very much, annoying sound interrupting me. I'm not going to re-record this. But yeah, so... Yeah, that's a concept I'm playing around with. This is an extremely rough draft of these. I don't want anyone to think that this is like a final version of anything. But yeah, so this is the idea for directional shield power for attack wing ships. So let me know what y'all think. Let me know if this is something you would play with. Let me know if you have any other mechanical suggestions. And we'll see what happens from there. And if I get good feedback on this, then maybe I'll start designing some actual pieces that we could like 3D print or something to go along with this. So thanks so much for your time, and until next time, to quote David, there we go.